So, hi everyone, and welcome to the CUEngage discussion on our 2021 product roadmap. My name is Emma Leahy, and I'm the marketing manager here at Wellington IT. Leading this session today is Ian Glenn, our CTO. I just want to remind everyone this is very much an interactive session, so we encourage you to pop any questions or thoughts you have into the chat bar, and of course, unmute your mic to ask any questions. We'll also be running a spot prize for participation, so there's even more reason to get those questions in. So before I hand over to Ian, we have a quick fire survey to get you all warmed up, which you'll see appearing in the chat bar to your right. And that is, what 2020 roadmap theme was most important to you? Was it revenue growth, compliance, member journey, or efficiency? In the member journey. Yep, member journey. Okay, and then we have another question here, which is, do you think you're ready for WOCU's Challenge 2025 to digitize credit unions globally by 2025? Yes, we've got this. No, I don't think we're ready. Or you're not sure yet. Quite a few don't think we're ready. Give you another minute just to get those polls coming through. Okay, some aren't sure yet. And then 2 think we've got them. And then the final one is just for a bit of fun. So the famous saying from Back to the Future, roads where we're going, we don't need roads. Of course, we do need a roadmap. But which decade do you think was the best? Was it the 50s, the 80s, or the 90s? Okay. Oh, it's a split between the 80s and the 90s. Okay, well that was just a bit of fun, just to get everyone warmed up. So I'm now going to hand you over to Ian, who's going to walk through our 2021 roadmap discussion.
Thanks, Emma. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining. So just to kind of set the scene a little bit and what we want to do today. So the purpose of this session really is for us to kind of primarily walk you through the feedback that we've gained from the questionnaire that we sent out to each of you, and we'll be delving into that in a little bit more detail later. What I wanted to do was just kind of talk about why you were doing this session. So I met with many of you over the last 6 to 12 months, and we talked a lot about the sort of evolution of the roadmap within Wellington. And the reason that we kind of branded it like that is because this is something we're continually striving to do better, from kind of going back historically to not having a roadmap to get into a position whereby we have a long-term roadmap that's customer-driven, taking insights into market and technology. So this year what we're doing is we're dragging all of the process planning much further ahead. So here we are at exactly the midway point of the year, and we're talking about and planning for and building products for a 2021 roadmap, which ultimately means we're talking about products that we're not even going to build for over 12 months. So we're really trying to lift it up and focus on longer term vision. And the undercurrent of this, as Em has already kind of alluded to, is this WOCU challenge for digitization by 2025. And really, I suppose the key point from that is we need to be getting on that journey now, okay? Because it's the products that we build now and in 2021 are the things that are going to revolutionize your business to get you to the place that you need to be in by 2025.
Michelle is now joining.
So so just in terms of context, this is the first of a number of sessions that we're going to be running, and we'll look back at the end and talk about what happens next. I really encourage you to make this an interactive session. So primarily, I'm going to be walking you through a number of the questions and our interpretation of those questions and analysing what that rolls up to and what that means from a scale standpoint. But really, what we'd really like to do is be interactive. So feel free to unmute your mic and ask questions or chip in if you have a valid point to add. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, please put your message into the chat bar, and we'll keep an eye on that and use that. It's going to be a couple of points when I'm kind of keen to get you guys engaged in terms of my interpretation of what you've told us, and just making sure that we've got that right and trying to involve you, because we like to be a bit of an organic conversation. So just really encouraging you to participate and take part. The other point, just in terms of a spoiler alert, this is not us sharing our 2021 product roadmap. This is about shaping it. Okay, so it's about gathering intel and insights from you guys, our customers, to shape that roadmap. Obviously, we have some strong views, and what we're interested here to see is, well, how do those views line up with the feedback that we've had from you guys? So to get us started, I want to talk a little bit about the survey results. So effectively what we did was we put together a little bit of a survey that you guys have completed, and really that's what's driving the content today. It gives us a good foundation and understanding of the priorities, and gives us some really good, interesting topics for further discussion. And it's helped sanity check some of the thoughts that we had, and as most of you know, I like to set out when we're building a roadmap, a set of themes that drive the content, and then we want to look at the priority items and how those things go, and the insights here give us the opportunity to do that much earlier than we've done it before. So this will be probably the questionnaire being phase one. This session being the second phase, but there's going to be a number of other phases in terms of how we then engage with you guys to delve into that as we now put some detailed shape on that 2021 roadmap. Another interesting point that came out of this session is it's helping us actually shape some of the priorities for the remainder of 2020. And at the end of this session, we're also going to be just taking a few moments to just reflect on where we are with our 2020 roadmap, how we've pivoted on that a little bit because of circumstance and demand, and where that leaves us in terms of the remaining priorities for the rest of this year. So to get started, what I thought I'd do was share the feedback in terms of statistics, in terms of who replied and what that kind of represents. Firstly, it probably extends my thanks to everyone who did take the time to go through, and I know a number of you actually wrote to me to advise that you had done it or you were planning to fill out the questionnaire. So we do really genuinely appreciate you taking the time to do that. We tried to keep the questions as quick and simple as possible, but the feedback is invaluable to all of us. So I just wanted to share that, look, the reason I wanted to share these stats is 75% of credit unions is fantastic from my standpoint. It means that what we're doing is getting a representative feedback and view from a large portion of our customers. What I would do, however, is encourage anyone who is in the 25% that didn't reply to do take the time to either engage through this session or in future sessions, because really what this is all about is collaboration. It's giving you a voice, right, to make sure that we are all on the same page, and that we're taking everyone's views into account, and we can be open and transparent and plan and pivot accordingly, because at the end of the day, we want a shared goal and a shared outcome here. So if we delve into then starting to walk through the various questions that we asked you guys as part of the questionnaire, the first one we asked was, does your credit union have a digital strategy? Okay, so obviously underpinning this is the WCAG 2025 strategy that's been set out. So what we were keen to do is get a line in the sand in terms of where do you feel that you sit today? Okay, and interestingly, what we're saying is actually quite a lot. So just shy of 80% of you guys are saying, look, we do already have a digital strategy, which is fantastic, and we'll be delving into that through this session. And there's a number there around 20% who are saying no, we don't. Okay, I suppose one of the things that's probably interesting to me is if I'd asked this question 6 or 12 months ago, I suspect this graph would have looked slightly differently, and I think that'll organically come out as part of the conversation. But I think a lot of people have moved really fast to start evolving to their digital strategy through the necessity dictated by COVID-19. That said, we're also keen to understand and delve a little bit deeper with some of those customers that don't have one, to try and say, well, look, is that a manifestation of the fact that either you don't feel you need one, or is it just too early in the cycle for you guys, or is it about actually you need some help, and that could be help from Wellington, it could be help from the market, it could be help from some of the other credit unions to help shape, why and how you would go about doing that. And certainly, hopefully, what you'll get from this session is a deeper understanding as to why this is important, both to from a Wellington and a market and a credit union standpoint. That'll hopefully help shape that for those guys that kind of fall into that category. So one of the sort of sub questions to that was, look, if you do have one, has it changed? Has COVID-19 impacted this? So what you'll see here in terms of themes as we go throughout this session is me giving you an interpretation, a high-level interpretation of the results that we give. We're using word clouds quite a lot, because really what that does is it gives us the ability to pop out the recurring feedback that we're getting from each of the credit unions, and just gives us a nice, easy, quick way to visualize this. So you'll see that coming through as a bit of a common theme. What I'd have to say on this one is probably the key theme that came out for those that had a digital strategy or do have one is all about acceleration and speed. Okay, and therefore, as we read the commentary, the two things really that jumped out at me are those that went, we had one, but we've had to invoke some of the activities and the priorities and pull them forward and do things faster. And we've had other people who went, well, actually, we probably didn't have one, but we necessity bred invention, and therefore we needed to get one, and we need to get one pretty quickly. So those are probably key findings. We did issue, we ran some statistical analysis on digital usage and digital uptake based on some standard products that we had available. And we issued a little bit of a blog on that. So just to kind of call out some of the references from that. So we kind of looked at three themes there, really. One was digital member onboarding. Secondly was on registrations for online usage. And finally was just the actual usage of the core system and terms of how that had changed. And what we saw was exponential increase across all of those themes, and to the tune of 225% uptick in digital member onboarding. Thanks, guys. So 225% increase in digital member onboarding. So this is fantastic because for me, this is a couple of things. One, it's using the technology to let your members join, but actually, almost more importantly, from a marketing standpoint, it meant that you were still getting the opportunity to engage these members without having your physical branches open in a lot of cases, and therefore, it isn't just the ability that they could do it; it was that they were still wanting to do it. So from an engagement standpoint, that was fantastic. And that was actually representative of a 71% average monthly increase across the 2 or 3 months that we ran these statistics for. The second stat here was around online registration. So this is where existing members were engaging with you in a branch or phone-based scenario, but not online. And in this scenario, we saw 135% increase in online registrations. So more than doubled the uptake of online registrations from the previous preceding months. And really, this is about showing that you have the ability to provide these services to the member and let them interact and engage with you in an online channel, whilst remaining in the safety of their own home during the pandemic. And then the final one is about online usage, and we saw 55% increase there. So what that meant was actually for those people who already had online access and were using it, they're using it 55% more. Okay, and we found that interesting as well, because what that meant was that effectively we have members who were using these services, but they were supplementing the visits to the credit union with the online services, whereas this increase is showing that actually they're now pivoting and using the online services for more of their transactional type activities. So I think this is a good place to start, because I think what this is saying is giving us an interesting footprint in terms of where we are today. The other interesting thing that we saw in terms of behaviours across both members and our credit unions was the uptake in some additional online services that kind of nestled beneath some of those stats I've just given you. And I'm thinking specifically things here like online loan applications and e-signatures around credit agreements. So things that had been about for some time, and that from a member and credit union standpoint had been on the periphery, now coming much more to the fore. So therefore the reason that's important is actually once you start engaging people on this digital journey, they just continually want to do more. What are the additional services that we can do? And I think the interesting conversation I've had with various people is that will ever revert back. So if someone is now on the digital journey, is that the way they will continue to interact with the credit union as they go forward? And it'll be interesting to try and evolve and watch those trends as they work out. So how important is a digital strategy? Okay, so I guess this is a bit of an open question, so I don't know if anyone wants to kind of weigh in this, either on the chat or unmute your mic and get involved. But look, we've if we assume the representation in this call is equivalent to the representation that answered, we've got 80% of you guys have invested time and effort and perhaps cost into developing and driving a digital strategy. So why do it? So I don't know if anyone's any specific thoughts on that, or would like to raise any comments. Let's flick over to the chat and see. So just whilst you're maybe thinking about that, just to give you a couple of different spins in this, right? So maybe we've got an undercurrent here around this WCOO 2025 challenge. So WCOO talk about 3 pillars to this. Okay, so first one being digital channels, right? Which is obviously one of the obvious ones, right? And what they're talking about there is can you provide what they call core digital transactional services, right? Both in an online and banking, online and mobile standpoint, and include some online payments and online loan processing. So they kind of nestle those things in there. So that's the first of their pillars. The second one being about digital payments. So they talk a lot about payment systems, making payments on mobile devices, hooking into national payment systems. I guess they're talking there about SEPA and clearing and bank transfers. And then the third one around data analytics. So obviously the more, and this is a number of different things. So it's about what are the trends in the industry, what are the trends that you're seeing, what are the types of devices people are using, how are they interacting, which types of transactions are they interacting in different ways with, and how can you use those, and therefore can you use those statistical information to drive additional service offerings to your members. And also identify member groups and personas, and whether there's different ways that you need to engage with some of these people. So the other interesting point really here that I want to just touch on is the kind of 20% of people that said they didn't have one, and really trying to understand and get underneath this, because actually digital strategy probably means different things to different people. So the reason I kind of called out those 3 pillars from WCOO is to kind of give a bit of definition around it, and I often like to talk to people about it's easy to interpret a digital strategy as saying, well, look, I've got something online, right? But something online could be a website that just has some information about your credit union, which obviously you all do, or it could be a little bit deeper than that in terms of having like some online services. So can I see my balances? To can I have a full range of services? So can I interact with my balances and then carry out true banking facilities on that? And then there's a difference between that and what I would kind of call channel shift. So channel shift would just be so rather than someone having to ring you up and get a balance, that they can get it online through a true, I would call, integrated bi-directional digital service. And what I'm getting at here is that the member can then use the online services to integrate digitally and either with data points in terms of technology and automation, or through directly engaging specific questions into the credit union that really save time. And I guess what I'm trying to tease out here is, look, this isn't just about replicating what you do in the credit union and in branch online. It's about delivering it in a different way. Yeah. So, and the ideal scenario here is that you give the member the services that they want, but also you get them to do the work effectively. So if they're filling out application forms, they're sanity checking, you have the technology doing the validation up front. Then by the time the information, whether it's a request or an application, comes into the credit union, a lot of the heavy lifting has already been done. Yeah, and that for me is the differentiation between a channel shift and a digital service. And then the last piece in this is something that's kind of called assisted digital. So it's great having all these digital services, but how do you provide support and assistance to people to use these services? And this can range from documentation to how-to videos to actually being able to connect in whilst those people are availing of those services, and help and support them, or automated telephony services. And so how do you provide the type of support that comes with a digital strategy, and how do you pivot? Because just having a digital service online doesn't mean you have no effort to do internally. It means that the body of work that you do is subtly different. It becomes a more consultative, supporting role, as opposed to the doing role. Yeah, and therefore that means different things in terms of how you transition your staff and how you retrain them and how you repurpose them, and restructure your teams accordingly. So we then asked the question around specific areas of product development, and we gave you some specific choices here, and asked you to vote. And I guess no significant surprises here in terms of loan book growth. And look, if we kind of touch now slightly on COVID-19, I guess that timing is interesting here in terms of when we're having this conversation and when we ask the question. Loan book growth always important from a credit union perspective, probably exponentially more important today, as we're acutely aware of the drop in many people's loan books as a net result of COVID. But I guess what's interesting here for us to start thinking about is, look, well, how do we start reacting to these things, which is what we're going to tease out throughout this session. So loan book growth, so are there specific services? Is it about loan rates? Is it about looking at money lenders and loan sharks? Is it about looking at the banks? What are the things that we need to delve into that's going to really make a difference on that? And then interestingly, sort of coming closely behind that is the digital member service piece. And really this is becoming more increasingly kind of front of house for all of us, really. So as a build on that, we then asked you a little bit about are there other products or other areas that weren't specifically listed there that would be important for you in 2021. So some of the key findings here really are coming around member services and operational efficiency piece, and with various different products being called out, from revolving credit to mobile and e-signatures and CRM. And quite a lot of reporting, right? And I think that's interesting because there's lots and lots of data captured, and that data can be analysed and used for various different activities in terms of whether that be about flexing on loan offerings, flexing on loan rates, targeting key members, targeting dormant members, all these different things. So I guess there's a key requirement there from many of you guys to kind of delve a little bit deeper into some of that reporting and how you can make it more useful to you. Overall, a little bit of a mixed bag there. Lots of detail, which is great. So we thank you all for that, and we'll certainly be engaging with a number of different people to kind of help on some of the questions and queries that come out of this, but also delve a little bit deeper into some of the other pieces that come out. And certainly there was a few people that kind of called out one of the points I was making a moment ago, which is, look, that there's probably a piece for digitization internally as well. Yeah, and this could be And this can fall in a number of different ways. So it can be thinking about, just punching a little bit smarter in terms of, do we really need to print and scan all the documents in? Can we move faster and quicker if we can have a digital service, and when someone presents in branch, actually let them avail of that digital service, much like many of the banks do now, where they have staffless branches and stuff like that. So are there things that can be done from that perspective? The other thing that's kind of become a little bit more prevalent is, like, how do you engage these members, and what do you do? So one of the things that we've been looking at from a Wellington standpoint, from a 2021 roadmap item, is around integrated video and conference chat piece. So is there a requirement for you guys to be able to make it easy for someone, and this could be linked to this assisted digital conversation that we had a little bit earlier, whereby you can provide an instant chat function or an instant video function to engage with someone should they have a query, whether that be about joining or applying for a loan or additional services that you may offer, or actually is it about giving them the opportunity to schedule that, and therefore the interesting thing is, like, that probably changes how you provide the service and the perception that your members will have of the service that you provide on a wider scale. Just checking my notes. Oh yeah, so a couple of other points that come out are there was, and this a little bit linked to reporting, but also a little bit around automation. So there was a couple of people making comments about, look, there's real opportunity to perhaps build out on some of the stuff that, just take an example. If you have a member who has a loan that's coming towards the end of its term, how do you engage those members? Can we get the technology to do that for us in an automated way? In terms of either offering them a new loan or advising them that new loan offerings are there, or even just as simple as reminding them that their loan is coming to an end, and they've only got a couple of months left to pay. So lots of really interesting things in there. A real mixed bag, from things that are currently available, and people either are using them and would like some enhancements to them, or perhaps don't even know that they're there. And therefore, and those things drive real opportunity. So the other stat I pulled out here is, so on the previous question we asked, like, is there any other specific items that you would like to add? And what struck me actually as I was going through the analysis is about a third of people said no, there weren't, right? Which either means we got it absolutely spot on, or perhaps it means that our list of topics were slightly too vague or less granular than they could be. And I think that's why it's really interesting to dig into some of the additional commentary that's coming through and trying to share that with people. It's also interesting to see, look, what do these things mean to different people, or is it just simply about doubling down and getting, let's just get more loans in because that's driving the revenue flows into the credit union, and that's first and foremost, But it just struck me as interesting, because it was quite a high statistic of people that said no, it is just about those things, and therefore let's do those. Let's do them as best as we possibly can, and those are the things that are going to make the difference in terms of a priority. So, three greatest opportunities in 2021, right? So what we were doing here is trying to get a gauge from your strategic, so almost stepping back from the digital journey, but what are the three, if you had to name three things, what are they that's going to move the needle for you in 2021? So you can see there from the little word cloud, so the biggest one being members, right? So the focus on the member here is becoming key. Always was key with credit unions, but remains a key part of this. And this is about multiple things once you delve into it. It's about how you engage that member. It's about the service that you give to that member. It's about keeping it frictionless. It's about competitors and how they compare you to the other banks and lenders that are out there. And it's about their ever increasing expectation that changes as a result of technology and market drivers. If we step outside of that, then there's a lot around those, what are the member services, right? And I've kind of touched on a few of those. I think that one of the key themes was that we saw, look, really what you were telling us is, look, you have this really, really strong relationship with your members. So how do you continue to deliver that and grow your membership? All right. Big focus actually on focusing on a younger audience, right, which makes a lot of sense in terms of getting those guys locked in earlier in their life cycle. And improving member services. And I think this is one of the things that we're really keen to kind of delve into as a next phase of this journey, which is, like, what are these services? You know, is it about making some of the services better, and how can we in technology help you do that, or is it about services that just aren't available? You know, and how do we incorporate those in a sensible, price competitive way into the offerings that we provide? A couple of other interesting things that jumped out. So current accounts coming out a lot, which I think that's certainly interesting in terms of probably a mix of some customers who have those and want to promote their usage, others that are keen to do that. And look, we see the logic in that. That gives you the ability to get really sticky with your customer. You know, get once they start banking with you, real opportunity to they'll be more engaged in terms of ongoing transactional relationship with the credit union, which gives you the ability to then look at other value-added services that you can wrap around that once you have that sort of closer, more regular integration and contact with them. Various customers looking at business lending. So obviously that's an interesting piece. We have a number of customers already do that. Have to say it's probably on quite a small scale. So that's obviously becoming more and more important in terms of how that's done. Comes with an interesting set of dynamics around how you analyze risk and liabilities associated with business accounts and so on. And I'm aware that the guys in the Solution Center are doing some work around a project for standardized offerings around this and standardized costs and so on, which obviously we're keeping a close eye on. Lots and lots of references in here to enhanced and new services that we really want to kind of get under, you know, try and understand what are those things, you know. So, you know, is it about open banking integration or analyzing transactions, you know, in terms of, you know, you from a credit union standpoint, understanding how people are using the money that they have, or is it about providing that as a service, because actually that's what the members want and demand, and that's the type of things that they can kind of get elsewhere, you know. And what's really interesting here is again a mixed bag of things that are coming back, where there's lots of things that people are talking about in terms of opportunities that are already available, which is great, and then there's certainly opportunities for us to build other features and functions within our systems that would help. So really deeper dive here in terms of getting underneath some of these things, and understanding how they would impact our strategic roadmap. So looking on the flip of that, then what are the things that might hold you back? What are the blockers, and the things that might pull you back the other way in terms of achieving some of those opportunities? So you know, we've touched on COVID-19 already, and the aftermath of that, and the loan book decline, and obviously lots and lots of people being concerned about that, and understanding, you know, thinking about how do they pivot, you know. So you can see their loan book standing out fairly significantly, the need to then grow it because it's dropped away, and costs jumping out quite a bit. And I guess that, you know, obviously those two things go very, very closely hand in hand, you know. So if your costs, you know, and probably for most credit unions, the costs aren't necessarily going up, and they may be in some cases, but actually if the revenue flow is going down, then the costs are probably disproportionate, or can be. So the question is, how do you pivot on that, you know, and how can we help you guys grow your loan book by offering enhanced services, some of which we've touched on already, to help drive out better revenue flows that help facilitate the cost lines that you've got, you know. And some cost reduction, obviously, you know, one way to look at that is about saving, you know, costs by removing staff and overheads. What we prefer to do is say, well, actually, if you can redeploy the staff that you've got into direct items that earn you new revenue lines, well, then that's much better from a win-win perspective, because actually it's those staff that help you with that really, really important key relationship with your members that other financial institutions just don't have. So from that standpoint, from our perspective, we're then looking at, well, look, how can we make the technology work a little bit harder? So we had a session yesterday on decision as a service. The idea there being, well, actually, if we can make the technology and all the data aggregate and short circuit the process of going from an application through to a proposed decision, then one, that's better for the member because it's faster. Secondly, it's better for you, fewer manual eyes on that. And thirdly, it's of higher quality because it's less subjective. It's being driven on key data points and letting you provide the workflow and the mechanics that drive that activity. Other points in that are, look, lots and lots of our customers really gaining lots of traction. I talked about the stats earlier on the uptake of digital services. We had a digital member journey session on cuEngage at the start of the week, and it was great to see a number of our customers showcasing things they were actually doing today. So how were they realizing their digital strategy, and how were they doing that, and how successful was it being, and has it pivoted in any way, and what technology are they using, and what feedback they're getting from the customers. And really, that the underpinning of that is, look, we've lots of if you kind of look at the spread across our customers from that 20% that don't have them to 80% that do, and of that 80%, some that are kind of in the first stages of it because those strategies are just being defined now, to others who are well advanced and well on the journey, and see themselves being ready well in advance of this 2025 deadline that's kind of been laid down. So really, this is, for me, a very interesting piece, and just if I just cycle back to the cost piece, the other interesting piece is that this is changing day on day. I was just reading an article from the Bank of England just a couple of days ago, where they're now predicting this sort of V-shaped recovery as part of COVID. So what they're doing is looking at the analytics to say, well, actually the rebound is coming a little bit faster than they thought. So they, their view from a UK standpoint today, anyhow, is that there could be an exponential recovery. And let's hope that that's the case. And it's interesting to kind of keep an eye on those kind of statistics, because actually it's a matter of then going, well, look, obviously we want to react here to the evolving situation around us, but really we don't want to lose sight of where we want to get to longer term, and make sure that what we're building collectively here can pivot, so that if things change and they change faster, obviously that's good, but we want to make sure that we're on a trajectory that takes all of those things into account. So I guess that brings me to what can we do about this, and this is an open question. So again, if anyone wants to kind of weigh in either on chat or verbally on mute, and feel free to do so. But really what we're trying to touch on here is, look, with the COVID hitting the general economy very hard, and obviously having the direct impact on financial services, there's so much that's outside of our control, right? So and what we're really keen to do is make sure that from an IT provider standpoint, that we're doing everything we can, in terms of products and services that help support you through these unprecedented times. And from that perspective, there's probably a couple of different themes that we're looking at, so I'll give you a bit of a sense of this from our standpoint. So when we're looking at new services, we're going, well, look, what are the new services that we can offer? Are they 2020 based services? So whether they're on our 2020 roadmap or not, do they need to be? And we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the 2020 session in a few moments. But there are other things, so take open banking as an example. So open banking, bit of a buzzword. We've talked a little bit about it. We had FSCom present at the last cuEngage event in Dublin around what that means. But really, we're now trying to get underneath that says, well, look, open banking has a key role to play, right? And from our perspective, we've a very clearly defined use case here. So if you can have a member engage with open banking as part of their loan application, then you will get verified bank statement from their current account. You will get visibility of their income, not what they've told you. You'll get direct visibility of it, and you'll get a transactional analysis of their spending patterns, right? And therefore that's going to, so from a member perspective, one, that means they don't have to key all of that stuff in. Two, it means that it's verified, and they don't have to actually, from a security standpoint, they don't have to, scan and upload statements and provide all those things. All they do is log into their bank, and you get all that information through. From a credit union perspective, it gives you the ability to then make a decision with even better data points available to you that's verified, and also then engage with that member and go, well, look, from if the automated decision is a referral, then you have better data to engage with that member and say, well, actually, part of the reason for this is that I can see from my analysis here that you've given me statistical data that says actually your spending patterns don't facilitate this type of loan, and those kinds of things. So appreciate you get, from a bank statement, there's some of this that you can do, but it all takes time, so the point here being that, look, we can actually make this open banking technology work a little bit harder for you. There's other added features that we can look at in terms of, we can then do transactional analysis of spending patterns within their accounts that they have with the credit union to kind of turn it on its head. And these things are great from a customer expectation perspective, right? But really the use case I've just described is giving you a real opportunity to save significant time and significant money in terms of the process. So that's from a new services offering that kind of straddles the next one around reducing costs. So one of the items that came through sort of loud and clear on the session was products such as revolving credit. And revolving credit's a really interesting or line of credit, depending on how you want to look at it, model, because what it's enabling you to do is offer effectively a flexible top-up loan to your members. And when that becomes available in an online self-service kind of way, the admin associated with those kinds of top-up type activities virtually goes away. So from a return of investment, this is a no-brainer. If you can get the technology whereby you can have a maximum line of credit and let the system deal with the mechanics associated behind that in terms of how much you need to repay and managing the term accordingly, which is what this product's defined to do, then the manual input required from a credit union is very, very low compared to a top-up loan, which requires you to go through and, to all intents and purposes, process a new loan for many of those members. And then the last piece in this really is about how do you attract new members, and this can be things like CRM systems. We have a number of customers who have actually invested in CRM systems because they want to, connect into Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and all these things in terms of how do you engage people. And we're now actively building an integrated API that lets you feed member and loan based data to a CRM system should you want to then take those activities outside of that. We have other customers who are engaged with this whereby they want to drive outbound communication from Xylem, which you can do in terms of emails and SMSs. So how do we find some data and batch poll those people and manage that within the GDPR consents. Other things like where we made the decision to embed the onboarding and ID and V within the new mobile app, so the advantage there being exponential, so what you can do from a marketing standpoint is say, to engage with my credit union, all you've got to do is download the app. Once you've got the app, you can join the credit union, you can register for online banking, you can carry out all your online banking activities, and you can apply for a loan or a current account or whatever service you want. And really, this kind of came to the fore. There was a really interesting blog posted a few weeks back, and it was looking at the fintechs, and what it was saying is, look, how do these fintechs stack up against traditional banks? On this particular blog, they were looking at what are the number of clicks required to get an account, basically. And what they were doing was they were kind of walking through where that was. So they kind of talked. So I'll just give you a sense of the top three. So Revolut was top 24 clicks. Starling was next with 38 clicks, and Monzo came in third at 45. So just as a matter of interest, we did a brief piece of analysis in our onboarding platform that lets you get an online account using the ID and V piece, and depending on whether they fill out their employment details, which aren't mandatory or not, you can do that with 40 clicks, right? Which would leave you guys from a credit union standpoint using the Wellington mobile app in third place, so just behind Revolut and Starling, and actually ahead of Monzo. So certainly some interesting things there that where IT can really help across a variety of different things, from new services, reducing costs, and attracting new members, and actually, and this probably leads in quite nicely to this. So one of the things I wanted to do here was give you a little bit of a sense of just building on my previous slide around what do some of these fintechs do. So Monzo are very open about their accounts, so it was nice and easy for us to kind of go and grab some of their statistical information. And really what I wanted to do here was say, look, Monzo get the fact that they need to invest in their technology because they're a technology company, effectively, almost first and a bank second, right? But what they're investing 7% of their assets into product development. Absolutely laser focused on service delivery, and it's interesting. I mean, the other thing I was just reading, actually just before the session started, I was reading an update that came through in relation to Starling that actually we referenced in the previous slide. So Starling, they've invested 100 million, so they got funding for 100 million to build just an SME banking service, right? And actually they've burned through all of that, and they're out this morning looking for a further 35 million. So the reality here is that these guys are investing significant amounts of money. There's 47 million been invested, and that's per year, and that's a growing number. We haven't done the historical analysis, but that is an exponentially growing number in terms of the technology. And what's really, really exciting from my standpoint is that, look, we believe that from a credit union perspective, you are not far behind, and in some cases on par or potentially ahead of these guys. And look, the reason I wanted to just kind of linger on this for a few moments is, like, the shared capability of groups like this and the user group enables us from an IT perspective to build products that allow us to compete in this market, meet the customer expectation and the member demand, but in a price competitive way that suits credit unions in Ireland. And I think that's significant, so as well as obviously looking at this, we obviously take key feeds from where these guys are going in terms of the products and services that they deliver. But really, I suppose the key point here I'm trying to make is, look, I challenge you to have a think about your investment, just in IT and products and services, because really, if you want these kind of services, this is the kind of investment that's going into it. From a total value standpoint, but actually from your perspective, it's maybe more about, well, actually how, so if I have a digital strategy, what funding has my credit union set aside to achieve that? Because having the strategy is one thing, having the funding and the wherewithal and the drive and the cash to do it is something else. So changing tack then, and probably getting a little bit more granular, we asked about, look, what matters in your core system, right? And we kind of give you a couple of options here, from user experience through functionality and automation and knowledge. And I guess I was slightly surprised, if I'm honest, with functionality coming out top. And the reason I say that is that obviously we all want new features and functions, but really, if you kind of look at the demands and the discussions we've just had, and I guess it depends how you interpret this question, but from that standpoint, we believe a big focus on how do we make the features and functions that you've got work smarter, right? So and by working smarter, there's two drivers from my perspective. One is automating as many things as possible. And we talked at length there about decision as a service and how that can help and where it can help and why we would do it, through to user experience. And from a user experience perspective, blatantly, this is, if you can get the member to do the body of the heavy lifting for you, well, then you don't have to. So you can kind of meet both demands, give them the service they want, give them it on a 24/7 basis, give them it in an app, let them do the heavy lifting, let the app do the validation and verification, and all you're doing is then the sanity checking behind the scenes, So absolutely, those are areas of focus for me. It's about how do we build the additional, any new features and functionality that we build needs to be built in those two ways, in terms of facilitating those pieces, because really it's that stuff that's going to make a difference from a technical perspective. And then there was an open question here around top products and services you'd like to offer that you currently cannot. So current account mortgages, businesses and others. So we'll have a second slide on the others that we'll come on to in a moment. So certainly interesting. So we touched a little bit on current accounts earlier, and on current accounts, look, as I say, I see current accounts as quite an interesting and significant stepping stone for credit unions. So whether the current account itself is a core revenue driver, and obviously there are revenue flows from that in terms of recurring fees and overdraft fees, which are actually interestingly largely the same as the interest rates on lending. But for me, I think the interesting piece about a current account is that that's where they're then going to do their banking. I know from my perspective, I'm on my app for my bank most days, and therefore if that bank wants to engage with me, they've got a platform where they can do it by, because just through sheer law of averages, I'm going to be on that site much more often if that's where my current account is. So that's what's interesting from my perspective. We're really keen to try and understand this, because we've got interesting feedback here in terms of some customers who are already doing it, and therefore are keen to kind of presumably just do it better, and how do they promote that service and make sure it's competitive and value for money, and is there a growth piece around that? And obviously there's lots of MCAS restrictions that we need to be compliant with, and then lots of customers who are keen and are probably watching and waiting how well that rollout has gone with other customers, and how productive it's been. And I guess, look, is it of value on its own, or is it this kind of connected value to other services that I talked a little bit about a moment ago? Business lending is a really interesting one from our perspective. We have opportunities to do business lending in our systems as it stands, and so businesses can be created. You can issue loans to businesses. As I said, some people do that. We've built all our integration with CCR to be supportive of the business lending platform. So in other words, if a business applies for a loan, that's automatically not only logged as an application inquiry, but reported to CCR accordingly. So lots of things that are already there, and we talked a little bit about some of the projects that are happening. So we're really keen to kind of get underneath that and understand, look, is there more we could be doing? Is there more we need to do to our product to help kind of support that, or is this a credit union service really? That is it about promotion and marketing? The other one that was interesting for me, and the reason we put it on here was around mortgages, and so obviously mortgages is an interesting piece in terms of assets, and we've had lots of customers who, through the flip side of COVID, have had significant increase in their savings. Inbound savings to the credit union, to the point that we've had to implement share caps for lots of customers to kind of control this. And I guess mortgages, given their higher loan value, give you an opportunity, I guess, to release a lot of those funds back into the market, and help you from that standpoint. And certainly an area where look, we'd be keen to look into that a little bit more. Some customers will do it. We know that there are certainly some areas where the products and the services could be improved, and we can kind of get underneath that with some of you guys. Okay, and then so this is the other box, right? So what's jumping out here is a number of interesting things. So revolving credit coming through very, very loud and clear. And I kind of touched on this earlier, where we talked a little bit about the why you'd want this product, and the value that can be got from this product, and the opportunities and the return of investment piece. And I think what's also interesting here, let's not lose sight of the fact that you can't get this product from a bank or from one of these fintechs. So there's a differential USP here as well. So it was great to see that coming through. what's really great from our standpoint is that's on our 2020 roadmap. We're working on it right now, so that's great. This doesn't need to wait to 2021. This is currently in flight, but some really other interesting things here. So loans coming through. So look, we've a really flexible system in Scion that lets you build your own loan products. Set terms, set interest rates. So there's lots of stuff that you can already do. So we're really keen to understand, like, is there more we could be doing to help you with that, or is this just about configuration, or is there or is there any gap between those two things? So what is it that we can do on that? Insurance, obviously an interesting one, not something that we have some integration with some insurance products, but not something that we currently have specifically in our product portfolio today. So that's certainly one that was coming through from quite a number of customers, and something we'd be keen to kind of explore in terms of what is the ask there. Is it about integration? Is it about a product or a module? Or how is that facilitated? And what is the ask? So we're keen to get onto that. The other one then that's jumping out is services, and really what that's talking about is member services. And so there's lots and lots of comments where people were talking about things like enhanced member services, better member services, increased member services. So one of the things that we're going to do is probably figure out how do we get underneath that a little bit and try and understand, is it about the services that you've got, making them better, and if so, let's put some granularity and some shape on which services those are and what does better look like. Or is it about new services, and equally again, what are those new services, and what's the cost to get there, and is there significant value, and is this about because you're missing out on something, or is it about actually if someone's going to use the credit union as their key financial institution, that there's therefore an inherent level of expectation that there's a service that goes hand in hand with this. And for me, I think where I landed after I read through all of the feedback that you guys gave us was that I think the theme that's coming through is, look, as we move to digital and online services, you guys are quite rightly precious about the level of service that you provide to your customers that's won you year on year, award after award, and therefore it's super important that those services are reflected in digital and online channels. And for me, that's about it's a combination of different things. It's about one, making the product good, which is absolutely on us. It's about educating the member, which is probably on you guys a little bit. There's making sure that your staff pivot and understand that the same service as run digitally is not the same service that you run in branch, and therefore the activities that those teams undertake probably change. That's not a bad thing, because actually it gives you the opportunity to redeploy and reshape and refocus staff. What I would then do is say, well, look, if you're going to do that, then what makes sense is if those members present, that you get them to use the digital channels internally, because then you've got continuity and consistency. So it's about all of these things and education. And then the last piece on that is assisted digital. So therefore, if someone is remotely availing of your services, how are you going to help them? Okay, and that's why we're looking at these online chat and video conferencing, and therefore, is it easy for someone if they become stuck? How do they get in touch with you without having to phone or email? Because then suddenly you've stepped right outside of the kind of digital channel, and that's why we're looking at things like these integrated video chats, but also things like the ability to enhance. So we have a fantastic secure messaging portal inside the mobile app and See You Online. But actually moving that to push notifications, which we'll be doing over the coming months, will make that more prevalent, so that if you need to send a message to the member, it pops up on their phone, or if they send you a message and you reply, they're immediately alerted. And again, this is about sort of member expectations. So we've kind of built our app ready for this. So the last section then here is in relation to the 2020 roadmap. So what we've shared on the screen here is the current version of the roadmap, which we issued on our last update a couple of months back. And I guess the key points we want to make here are the items that are starred are new items that we've kind of dragged in. So we kind of, we issue a roadmap, we issue it in advance. Here we are talking about 2021s, and we're only halfway through 2020. So obviously there's a change control process that happens. But the reason these new things were added in were basically us pivoting based on customer demand and based on circumstances that happen around us, like the COVID pandemic. And I think that's important. If we hadn't been issuing pins by text, we wouldn't have been able to realize some of those statistics that we just talked about in terms of uptake. Closing out on the ECU form online and engaging with ECU and with a number of you guys, many of which are on this call, to get that product out to market was significant in terms of helping you achieve that process and getting a fully true end-to-end loans application process. And by doing some of these things, it gives us the ability to drag some stuff forward. So, for example, in the future column, we've got process flow efficiencies. Well, actually, that isn't an item on its own. It's a theme almost. So in other words, how do we, when we're building these things, how do we make the process flow a little bit more efficient? So those are the things. Obviously, we've had a specific session this week on the mobile app, and we're very, very excited that that's going live imminently, with multiple customers' apps being deployed and in the review process with the app stores as it stands. The automated decision recommendation we covered on yesterday's decision as service, and ID and V around the member onboarding enhancements. So lots of really interesting things that are happening and are in flight now. So we're just in the process of updating the roadmap, and we'll be issuing a further update on our 2020 roadmap very shortly. And what you'll then see is the items here that are in the now column will all be moving across into complete, because actually today we're largely working on the items that are in the next column, around enhanced current accounts on the CUSOP side. We'll be issuing comms around AML 5 and 6, and thanks to everyone who's attended all the workshops and provided your feedback on that. So we'll be giving you an insight and a runway into when we're doing those things and how that rollout is going to look, and when they'll be available to people. And in addition to that, the other bit then that I touched on earlier is that, so we had APIs for CRM and document storage out in the kind of future column as we were kind of pivoting. And actually what we found is, there is a need for some of that. So we're actually working on the CRM API at the moment. So, it's an evolving thing. We're absolutely on track or where we plan to be, adding new things and pivoting on that, and we're engaged with lots of you guys on things like reporting to CBI on COVID and all sorts of stuff that kind of evolves on a day-to-day basis. But really just to kind of give you a bit of an update on some of those key topics. So that was a quick whiz through that, Emma, just on the point, because I'm conscious of time, and we're going to issue a specific comms on the 2020 roadmap anyhow, so we can gauge specific questions on that at that point. So
perfect. Well, we have some questions, Ian. Thanks for that. We've some questions here in the chat, but again, anyone can unmute their mic as well. So this one from Liam. So, hi Ian, you spoke last year. You may have possibly wanted to cover this around product simplification, but you spoke last year about making sign-on more user-friendly by introducing a landing page for the user. Have you progressed that? Also, is there a way to have push notifications to the user which will remind the member services offer to ask certain questions, such as if a member's ID is out of date, can that notification come up when the account number is entered? Apologies, that was two questions I asked you in one. So the first one, landing page for the user. Have we progressed with that?
Yeah, so we have a prototype for that. We have, because of some of the new items that we've added in around the Q1, Q2 roadmap that we just kind of touched about. So we haven't released that yet. We have a prototype. We're going to be going out and engaging with some customers in Q3 around getting access to that prototype and helping us shape that. Yeah, so that's probably the answer on that one. The second one was around the messaging platform, isn't that right? Yeah.
Yes. Is there a way to have push notifications to the user which will remind the member services officer to ask certain questions, such as if a member's ID is out of date, can the notification come up when the account number is entered?
Yeah, so there's two things in that, Liam. One is absolutely, you can actually do that already. So the system can be configured that it can either pop up at the counter, or it could create a task or a workflow item to do that. The other thing is that if their ID is out of date, one of the enhancements we put in last year was that it does pop up and See Online Plus. So if they, or on the app, that if they log in, it will tell them their ID is out of date. So they'll be prompted and taken to the ID renewal page at that point.
Okay, thanks for that. Another actually really interesting question here from Liam. Actually, The additional add-ons are very welcome, e-signatures, digipads, etc. But it makes managing them more complicated. For example, installing digipads and other computers require a bit of understanding. And he wants to know, do you feel that credit unions need to start planning for an IT resource within their organisation now?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, Liam. I think that you're, and I kind of touched on the Monzo piece, where they're almost an IT company first and a bank second, and that's Ian's interpretation, right? But I think the more you invest in IT and the more you have services that rely more and more heavily on that IT, especially as we move into more of a sort of 24/7 web type environment. Yeah, I think absolutely, Liam, would be my view, because the point being that when the IT then breaks, you can't wait for it to be fixed, and if you don't have that local IT support to enable you to do that, then you're at risk from, and what you don't want to be is at risk of damaging your member relationship, which you guys have worked a long time to build up.
It's great. I want to hear from Jeff, which may require a bit more digging, but he said, in order to develop strategies and understand their progress, it's vital that we can analyse performance at key levels. So he wants to know, are there any plans to broaden the scope currently covered by CU Insights?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've done, Jeff, is we're now rolling out the new CU Insight environment, right, which gives us some of the new features and the new look and feel. We had planned to do a full review of all the data cubes that are available as part of that, but we were keen to get that version out from both a technical and a user interface standpoint. But yes, we are planning to run a specific workshop on CU Insight data cubes and analytics and make sure that you have access to all the data that exists in the system, and that includes things, Jeff, like as we move into more web type transactions, are there trends that you need access to as well, and do you have all that data available to you as part of that?
Thanks for that, Ian. I've one here from Eileen that says, we have found open banking a real asset, both in terms of providing confidence to the loan underwriting and from the member's perspective in the way that we can nudge the member into a way of improving their budget. And we do all of this now. So not actually a question, just more of a comment. I thought that was an interesting one to pull out.
It's fantastic, Eileen, because actually, I think the open banking is one of those things that means different things to different people. So it's great to hear someone who has actually got it and using it and seeing the value in it, So thanks for that.
Yeah. Another great comment here from Trevor, actually. He's saying great presentation. And in terms of the IT provider role, so that was referring back to that section, he thinks as customers, we need to help as much as they need to help as much as possible. And something that would be really helpful is having our business analysts visit particular credit union departments and sit with the staff to see where the pain points, etc. are and help develop the product.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Trev. And we've certainly seen...
is now exiting.
And one of the things we're planning to do here is get underneath this. So I said up front in terms of a spoiler alert that we weren't sharing the roadmap, right? And part of that was because we're building it here, right? But inherently, to Trevor's point, what we will do is as we saw Emma and we were doing the analysis, there's lots of things here that were very straightforward and obvious feedback that we can pivot on and get on a roadmap. There's others we need to dig underneath. And actually, this is exactly how we'll do it, Trevor, because there's nothing like seeing it firsthand.
Yep. Another great question from Jeff here. So he's asking, what plans are there for enhancing payment services? Currently, payments go to our bank and then have to be manually processed into Cyan and the members' various accounts. Are there any developments in the pipeline?
Okay, that's one I need to take offline, Jeff, probably, and have a look at with the team and probably understand your process and how that fits with you're talking there specifically around reconciliation, I think, aren't you? And how those are and Cyan. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we I mean, that is certainly an area of focus. I'd be keen to probably pick that one up with you offline, Jeff. Yeah, and then obviously we can share it with the group, Emma, in terms of the output, and get the team involved in that.
Perfect. Got a comment here from Liam. So he would really like to see a more comprehensive communication package integrated into Cyan so that they can not only send automatic text messages and email messages, but to have trigger messages that go to the member depending on the member engagement event. And it would be great if it were possible to see a summary of the member engagements, both member initiated and credit union initiated.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, some of that, Liam, you can do today, right? So I think it would certainly be sensible for us to engage with you in terms of what you can do in the system between account access triggers that can be fired. So basically, you can two key things just very quickly. Based on any type of account access, whether that's from your staff or from the member, it can raise an event. That event can be an alert. Yeah, and that alert can be a text message or an email. So you can do that already. Yeah. The other thing you can do is use the selection criteria mechanism to go and find members that meet a certain set of criteria, and then on bulk send them comms, right, be it an email or an SMS. So there's I'm not saying, Liam, it's everything that you've put in this box, but actually there's quite a lot of that you can probably already do. So I think that'd be one I'd be keen to pick up in a little bit more detail.
There's another one here actually from Liam, and he wants to know what your view of Revolut's introduction of linking other bank accounts to your Revolut account, and do you see that as a future threat to their way of providing credit?
It's an interesting one. The open banking platform does let you, depends on what kind of AISP you are, but what it does is it lets you drag in account balances from other accounts, which I think is what you're getting at, Liam, so that you can then go, so theoretically we could in C Online Plus or in CU Mobile, we could say, do you want to connect your bank account? And it would then drag that balance in, right? Now, there are some quite tight restrictions on this, Liam, that basically it only lets you show, balances and maybe in certain elements some transactions, but it doesn't let you actually transact with it. If you want to transact with it, you've got to do a SEPA payment, in or out, or a transfer in EFT or something like that. So in my view, personally, I probably see it as slightly limited value, but that's certainly one I'd love to explore. And it is a use case. It is possible to do. It requires a different level of approval. Yeah, so it would require you as a financial institution to go through a different set of approval matrices to allow you to do that, right? But open banking and PSD2 does facilitate it, yeah. And in terms of the partners that we're engaged with and talking to about open banking, it is technically possible. I guess I'm on the fence. I probably haven't answered your question, Liam, because I don't know, as to whether it's a threat or not. But from a technical perspective, is it possible? Yes, it is. Yeah, it can be done.
Great. We've got a thanks, Ian. We've got a comment here from Trevor, which I think is great, because this is the beauty of these sessions where we can start generating ideas and having different suggestions. So his comment is to Liam's question on the communication package, and that integration is there as Member First are having those similar challenges, and he suggests that maybe a CRM integration would help answer that one. Which I think is great. Yeah. It's great to have this interaction.
And I think that's great, Trevor, because what Trevor's doing is servicing something I probably didn't touch on properly, really, which is that, look, Scion is never going to be a full CRM system. It does have outbound comms, and it does actually have marketing capabilities within it, right? But it's not designed, nor will it be designed to compete with a full-on CRM system, right? So therefore, what we want to do is give people choice, right? So we can do lots of things in terms of aggregating outbound comms that I've just talked about based on GDPR consents and send them out, and those things can all be viewed and tracked inside Scion. However, if you're wanting to do deep-rooted customer relationship analysis integration with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all those things, it sounds like you probably want a CRM system, yeah. And therefore, what Trevor's talking about is that we're already talking to Member First about how we provide key pieces of data from your single source of truth, which is Scion, to enable you to do that, yeah. And like in the short term, that can be in one way, yeah, in terms of feeding data out to let you do all those things. But ultimately, what you might want to do is feed some stuff back, in terms of how that works. So that's all possible as well. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Ian. We have a comment here from Richard, which is around, and I'm reading between the lines here that there's a question. He said, obviously everything in the roadmap's great, but I think really what would help is if you could outline our plans for what we have for enhancing our support team.
Yeah, we so various different plans actually. So we're currently out recruiting at the moment for that team. So we're increasing the headcount on the team in a number, and a couple of different ways actually, just so I'm clear. So one, we're adding extra people on the actual help desk as it stands to have greater bandwidth there. We're also recruiting into our shared services team. So these are the teams that look after the online access and mobile. Yeah, so so we kind of run those as two separate teams in terms of end customer support and technology support, if you like. So we're actually recruiting across both of those teams and facilitating that. that. The other piece that we're doing is obviously investing fairly significantly in how our business continuity and DR processes work as well across our various data centers. So it was invested fairly significantly in that, and we've invested further this year in terms of providing extra provisioning in both of our data centers to allow us for further redundancy across some of those services.
Thanks. I mean, I was reading between the lines there, but hopefully that helped answer it. If it didn't, though, feel free to comment. Comment here. So, suggestion really from Brendan. You know, he's saying that there's been great work has been done on a lot of the new product development, which is great. There's these signatures, onboarding, current accounts. I think he's feeling at the moment it might be a bit like of a jigsaw, and that they might need a little bit more training provided and how they all tie together. And it's just asking really, you know, there's no. The suggestion is to start looking at a dedicated training resource within Wellington IT, which I think is interesting because training is something obviously that we have looked at.
Yeah, and I think that what's interesting, I think it's a really good point. So we do this, but I think actually to Brendan's point, you know, when we release a module, we would deliver that module and we'd deliver some training into professional services as a result of that. I think what you're saying, Brendan, is a really interesting point, is that when you then step back and you're connecting all these dots just to make sure nothing's falling between two stools, you know, it would be interesting. Maybe there's a refresher piece, you know. I think the other interesting thing is that actually an awful lot of our customers haven't had or invested in any training in the system in a very long time, you know, and part of that's on us offering that service, you know, so I do get that. And secondly, it's probably about encouraging you guys to take that, because what happens here is we deploy new products that kind of inject into the middle of the process, which is sort of Brendan's point. But secondly, there's a lot of these products that you already have that the training on which we provided, you know, 10, 15 years ago, and therefore it's, you know, internal training has been handed on. And look, we're seeking to cover a little bit of that around the digital member journey piece that we've done, where we're kind of articulating, you know, almost process flows, you know, that's how do you get from start to finish in terms of a loan, and whether that's online or whether it's in branch, you know, what are the various touch points, you know. So yeah, we could certainly build out on that a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay, I believe that is it for all of the questions. If anyone wants to unmute your mic and ask a question, or if you want to take a minute and put something into the chat bar, feel free to do so. I'll just give you some time to do that. Okay, we'll possibly leave it there. I appreciate that we have run over, so thank you so much to everyone that stayed with us. Thank you to Ian for hosting today's session, and thank you, and to everyone who came along today and participated in the session. And then, of course, to those who completed that survey that we sent out beforehand, you know, it's really important to us that we get this engagement with you, and we'll keep continuing this. As Ian said, you know, this is only the beginning of these types of discussions, so we will be in touch with an update soon. This session is being recorded, and we'll send it out later, so look out for that. And we'll also send you a link to all of the CUEngage sessions that have been recorded this week, just in case you missed any. So that's it. Thanks again, and we'll see you at the next CUEngage in autumn.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Just if Liam's still on the call, just Liam, you've won the vouchers, so we'll be in touch with you about that as well.
Of course, I completely forgot. Thanks, Rebecca.
Well
done, Liam.
Well done, Liam.
Thanks.